Hello, hello. Considering that I live near the Los Angeles area, but I'm not in it, and because in California where I live, there's so many cases and there's so many I don't know if there is if it's true. I haven't checked out the hospitals, but there's lots of old people who live in my part of the world, and so there is a lot of what's the word stress to some degree on some hospitals, not on others. There still is I think it's probably fake how much stress there is on the nurses and stuff in our area, but let's just say, let's for the sake of argument, let's say that the hospitals are super over stressed. I mean, they're not, but let's say for the sake of argument that they are, and that it is dire, and because that coronavirus is so deadly, or it's so not deadly, but so transmissible, they don't want to bring too many patients into the general area because the air ventilation's bad. And I mean, there's just a lot of issues considering that the hospitals weren't ready for this and that there wasn't already things in place in a hospital setup to allow for contagious people to be put in one room and then have that not infect everyone else. They have to put everyone on their own floor, or if they had to put everyone on ICUs, even though that's not a functioning option anymore. But here's my suggestion, and it's that there's a couple things to account for here. The first thing to account for is that we have never had this amount, this level, this degree of medical care in society before, in as far as what doctors are able to do and treat, right? And that's where lots of this conflict is coming from, because if you put this back 50 years ago, if you put this back, let's say 100 years ago, if there was a transmissible virus going around and it was killing people, no one would give a fuck. It would not, I mean, people would care, but they do stuff about it on the individual level because there wasn't this expectation that there was this healthcare system that had a standard that it was held to, that you could expect a certain level of care from. That wasn't a thing. I mean, I don't even know when there was guaranteed health care to some degree. At a certain point in time, there was your health care was whatever your family could provide for you or whatever the local doctor, medic, alchemist could provide for you. There was community medication, like medical care, but it was low quality, and it wasn't this expectation that everyone should get the same amount of care. I mean, it was if you could get it, you could get it. And again, it was on an individual level because the level of advancement that medicine was in at that time was so low. A normal doctor, a standard person could serve as a whole community because there wasn't an extended canon of different diseases and different treatments, different medication that they all had the resource, and they all had to go through a giant bureaucratic system to get to basically function as a doctor. And then it's overregulated, so again, you can't be a small-time doctor anymore. You can't just be someone who goes and does some sort of folk medicine. That's a weird way of putting it, but homeopathic doctor work or some kind of shaman. I know that these are all very loaded words as being woo, not being actual medicine or actual science. But if we're having such an issue of individually treating such a large virus as far as scope goes, because our medical infrastructure is so centralized and is so immobile that it literally gets overwhelmed immediately if any amount of stress gets put on it, basically. I mean, this is a very this system is terrible if you look at it heuristically. Like they did not carry enough beds for less than 1% of the population. It looks like I'm just making up these numbers, but they did not have enough beds for the population of the counties they were servicing. So at this point, it's like if a unreasonable number based off of previous statistics hits their hospital facilities, they just get overwhelmed and then they can't treat you. That's really, why are we in that position? We should be able to individually treat people at home. We should be able to have some degree of medical knowledge. Here's the problem with centralization. You can't respond to situations so quickly because you have gate-kept the knowledge on how to help individual people, on how to cure individual diseases, on how to help little things for the common population, because you just said the hospitals will handle all of it. We shouldn't live in this perfect world. It's not even real, where there are professionals to handle everything. You can hire a professional to do that, because the professionals get more and put more and more in demand as more and more people expect the professionals to help them. And then because everyone's relying on them in a monopolistic sense, they can raise the prices, and the price of things will rise over time if there is an expectation that regardless of what you do, you have to go to the professionals. Now, I mean, obviously, you can do what you can at home, but I think that there hasn't been this push to decentralize medicine, and that is something I'm advocating for here. We need to decentralize medicine. We need to advocate for more at-home remedies, and probably also advocate for some sort of personal effort on your part to make yourself healthier. Obviously, that's already there in the form of exercise, but as far as, I mean, not even just vitamins, just some sort of like, well, you should have this cheap thing in your home that can help with this, and this, right? Imagine if there was like some sort of IV, ICU ventilator thing in everyone's homes just because it was something that was useful to have. That kind of thing. And obviously, not everything can be kept, but what if everything was to be decentralized to the point where you can rent it out easily, or you can have a more at-home approach to doctors and nurses? So you can have someone that's like a paramedic, and for lesser illnesses, they can be sent out to a home and deal with it like that. And it would be something maybe that's more part-time, maybe something that is more as an expectation in a community rather than, or maybe like a medical robot that flies into your home and checks out your kid or whatever and sees if they need additional help. And then you can also probably better allocate resources based off that, because again, you're not just all relying on a single centralized location for everyone to go to if they are sick, at which point you are mixing infectious people in with old people who are just trying to get their medication for the day. And it's like you've really screwed the pooch on this, because you've relied too much on authoritative centralized positions of resources and goods. You should, and that's the thing. People have stopped considering the medical field to be like other fields. They're like, it's special. It's beyond like a capitalistic point of view, because you shouldn't play that game with people's lives. It's like, no, you can be hyper efficient with who you're trying to buy your medicine from, who you're trying to buy your like the medical service from, if you are given a lot of options and you're given the ability to choose. People complain about healthcare a lot because it's so expensive. It's because it's monopolized, dude. It's because it has you only have one option basically to go get your medical care from, and you can't undercut the system or else it's illegal. You can't get at-home care for certain things, or else because they're afraid it will be botched. Well, plenty of people go down to Mexico for their medical care anyway, because it basically services the same function as what I'm talking about right now. Because there are certain things that, regardless of whether or not it's lower quality, it still provides the care. It's like, would you rather have a service that is a medical service not be provided to you at all, or be provided to you at a high standard but at an exorbitant medical cost? Would you want there to be no middle ground, where there's a middle cost option that might be less safe but still affordable? Because that's your options. And people just are like, oh, well, I don't want that middle ground option. But then you basically just price out a bunch of people from having medical care. And then you want the state to subsidize medical care, at which point you're indebting everyone to like a bad system, even highly more monopolized system. So we need to decentralize medicine, decentralize hospitals. Let's, deregulate everything. Libertarianism. Yeah.